training session, each game was happiness for me because I have the privilege to make my hobby my job.
You are the world champion, you are the record breaker, you're not only a living legend, you are a living history.
With Messi and Maradona in Argentina, or the other Brazilian superstars or Ronaldinho, they are still heroes.
You have started celebrating before the final whistle.
No, this game was part of my life. This game was part of my career.
We still dream a country of 1.5 billion population would be playing the Soccer World Cup someday.
You can really have this dream because you have potential and you have kids that like to play football. You have to find the right kids.
You deserve that glory in the world arena to be considered as one of the greatest.
When I go to Italy, when I go to Serbia, it doesn't matter, they recognize what I was doing for the football. In Germany, you have to die and then you are the best for them. It's like this.
A U.S. submarine torpedo strike in the Indian Ocean has brought the U.S.-Iran war right to India's doorstep. Now here's what happened. On the 16th of February, the Iranian frigate Dana arrived in Visakhapatnam for India's Milan 2026 naval exercise. From the 18th of February till the 25th of February, it took part in multinational drills in the Bay of Bengal as India's guest. The ship left Indian waters well before the West Asia war escalated on the 28th of February. On the 4th of March, while sailing in international waters south of Sri Lanka, a U.S. submarine fired a torpedo and sank the Dana. Sri Lanka rescued 32 surviving sailors. 87 bodies have been recovered. Today, a second Iranian warship has asked Sri Lanka for port access. Iran's Foreign Minister Syed Abbas Araghchi gave Tehran's first official reaction on social media platform X. He called the strike, quote unquote, an atrocity at sea 2,000 miles away from Iran's shores. He said the frigate was a quote-unquote guest of India's navy, carrying nearly 130 sailors and was hit without warning. He warned that the US will bitterly regret the precedent it has set. By repeatedly calling the ship India's guest and placing the attack in the Indian Ocean, Iran is clearly trying to draw India into the conversation. India's opposition leaders have already used these exact words to accuse the government of staying silent and being quote-unquote timid. The government's position is clear. The ship and its crew were India's guests only until the 25th of February. After that, the Dana was on its own return voyage. No request for help came to India after the ship left our waters. The debate is sharply divided. Supporters of a response argue that the Iranian warship had recently been a guest at India's naval exercise and was struck in the Indian Ocean region that India considers strategically vital. They say remaining silent could weaken India's credibility and risk setting a precedent for military actions in its maritime neighborhood. Those favoring restraint counter that the incident is part of the broader U.S.-Iran conflict and occurred in international waters after the ship had left India. A public response, they argue, could upset India's delicate balance with the US, Israel, and Iran, and potentially pull New Delhi into a crisis it is not directly involved in. Now, the Indian Navy has just released a statement. It says it responded swiftly after a distress call from the Iranian warship Iris Dana was received by the Maritime Rescue Coordination Center in Colombo early on the 4th of March. The vessel was reported about 20 nautical miles west of Gali, within Sri Lanka's search and rescue region. The Indian Navy deployed a long-range maritime patrol aircraft, kept another aircraft with life rafts on standby, and sent INS Tarangini to assist the rescue efforts. INS Ikshak has also sailed from Kochi and continues to remain in the area as India coordinates ongoing search and rescue operations with Sri Lanka. And the big questions that we are asking right now, while India's formal role ended on the 25th of February, does the moral obligation to condemn a strike on a recent maritime partner persist? Or would that be a dangerous diplomatic overreach? With a US submarine sinking a ship near Sri Lanka, has the region officially become a secondary theater of the West Asian war? And what does that mean for India's maritime sovereignty? We have Ambassador Suresh K. Goyal, former Indian diplomat, and we have Rear Admiral Girish Kumar Garg, defense and geopolitical expert, now joining us. Thank you, both of you, for taking time out to be this. Ambassador Suresh Goyal, talk to us. Iran has repeatedly said we were India's guest, but India's clarification from government sources at least say that they were, that is the operative part of it, they were our guests. They were not our guests when the attack took place. And in that sense, from all kinds of diplomatic precedents, do you think it warranted a response from India?
Thank you very much. Let me not go into even the issues of guests and therefore the responsibilities and the kind of obligations we had towards our guests and so on and so forth. The situation under the laws of seas, UNCLOS, is like this. The warships, which are actually on the high seas or on the international waters, they are not supposed to be part of a war effort. They enjoy immunity from war actions. And therefore, under the law of the seas, any Iranian ship, even if they were actually that come to the Indian waters and they had left the Indian waters, which is the territorial seas, and gotten into the continental shelf and then onto the international waters, as the ship was expected had done, responsibility of India for protecting the ship ends after the exercises were over. Even in the exercises, our responsibility only lies to a certain extent under the laws of the sea, not beyond it. That is as far as the law is concerned. In terms of the relationship between India and Iran, how we treat the case is entirely a different matter, but I will come to that in a moment. So therefore, when the ship had left the Indian waters, had come onto the international waters, it enjoyed immunity from any kind of war action on the international or the high seas, so to say. The issue really here is that the USA is not signatory to UNCLOS. And therefore, the USA can very well take plea behind or can take the plea that they were not signatory to UNCLOS, and therefore, for them, the Iranian ship was fair game. But then that brings us to the another point. I mean, I do not expect any morality or any observation of law from the US. After all, when they hit a school in Iran, killing 185 people, there was the morality or the law of the humanitarian law in that. But that is besides the point. Therefore, I will not examine the issue relating to the US section from the legal point of view. They don't observe those laws, and they have not observed those laws as far as they are concerned. Theirs is the law of the might. But if this thing, but let us assume that there is an oil tanker coming towards India, very close to the Indian waters, and that tanker is hit by an enemy ship or an American ship or somebody else very close to the Indian waters. Would that be taken as an action against India or not? I would assume that, knowing very well that this ship was returning from an exercise in the Indian waters, it was very close to the Indian maritime space. Hitting the ship was actually a challenge to the Indian Maritime Authority that, look, we can do this close to your waters. And therefore, if we think that you are violating our laws, you are not safe. That is where I would leave it for the time being.
Okay, fair enough. Rear Admiral Girish Kumar Garg, it's a complex, layered situation. Clearly, there are no. It's in a grey area, one way or the other. But tell us, the fact that an attack like this happens on in Indian Ocean waters, India is widely considered as the guardian of the Indian Ocean. It is, be it the US, be it the Quad, all of it looks upon India to guard the Indian Ocean. This is right there in our backyard, and not once but twice.
I think when we say that India is the guardian of Indian Ocean, I think we are stretching it too far to say that every inch of Indian Ocean, whatever happens, whichever submarine is lurking underwater, India will have knowledge about it, and India is obligated to take actions against it, take care of any ship which is endangered. I think that is a very wrong interpretation. Even U.S. Navy does not have the wherewithal to, in their waters, to keep track of 24/7 of every inch of waters.
Rear Admiral Girish Kumar Garg, India is seen as leading the efforts to keep the waters of the Indian Ocean calm, along with other powers which operate in the region. Clearly, it is not just India, but in that sense, the fact that this has happened and not very far from Kanyakumari.
I agree with you, but you see, we need to understand how the maritime theater operates, especially in the underwater domain. If the somebody is lurking underwater, there is no way that, so many thousands of miles or hundreds of miles away from Indian territory, India can deploy resources 24/7 to know what's happening there. It's not visible. You can't track it through satellites. If it's above water or it's on land, your satellites, you can 24/7 track.
But now that it's happened, do you think it warrants a response, or it doesn't warrant a response from be it the Indian Navy or the Indian government?
I don't think it warrants a response. I wouldn't say it warrants a military or naval response. Yes, humanitarian aspect, you can say that from a humanitarian point of view, it may warrant a response to say that we are sorry that this happened, but to say that Indian Navy is responsible for it and therefore Indian Navy should apologize or feel bad about it, I don't think.
No, but more in the sense that I question the fact that, if there's something like this so close to Indian waters, international waters, this is taking place, there should have been, prior communication with India.
Absolutely. In war, we all say that it's all fair in love and war. So you don't expect international diplomatic protocols to be followed in the event of war. I'm sure US would never have shared the intelligence with India, saying that your Iranian ship is leaving as your guest and we are going to attack it. I don't think that. Forget about in this situation. Any situation, any country will do this kind of prior information, and if they do it and then expect the other country to keep quiet, I think that will be too much. So I think anybody who's expecting that